So the first thing just to note is that community vitality, though it's a new program area for the McConnell Foundation, is anything but new for the foundation. If you think of it, you can probably close your eyes and think about a nonprofit that you've been involved with or a community asset that you've been involved with that in some way perhaps the McConnell Foundation has touched. We actually looked back and saw in kind of our own internal coding systems, there have been more than $45 million of grants over the course of the almost 30 years, which are kind of categorized as community vitality. So this is nothing new, but what is new right now is a 10-year commitment to downtown revitalization, both in terms of grant making and also investments. So my goal here tonight is to share the thumbnail sketch of some of the early ways that that's taking shape. We're just about a year and less than a week into it, so it's still relatively new. I want to do a quick tour of 4 potential projects in downtown, potential and actual. These are in different phases of development. And just call your attention first to how there's a clear theory of change you can probably pick up on just in terms of this visual. Obviously, this is the downtown. You can see there's an outline around an area that really represents the downtown core. And people in this room have known the downtown core in many iterations over the years. We think that it's important to start there to create some density of activity, and then hopefully that has an opportunity to ripple out from there. And so I'll talk about these 4 different projects: a mixed-use development, potential reuse of the former, kind of reimagining the former police station, the former bell rooms, and then if there's time, just touch on the Union Pacific property swap, which some of you in this room have been involved with in many iterations over the course of the past years. So I'll just share the very latest installment in that. And if anyone has any questions, we also are doing a whole bunch of grants. The Reading Cultural District to Shasta County Arts Council is one that we're very excited about. There's a range of others, but I figured you'd probably be most excited to hear about these projects that will show up in the built environment. So that'll be my focus tonight. So the first question with a new program is, okay, this is the Community Vitality Program, but what is Community Vitality? And a group like the League knows that when you start making a list of all the things that are vital to a community, it's like when you start making your focus group or topic area, subgroups. Water matters, healthcare matters, public safety matters. It all is part of this, educational attainment. So the first challenge was really to architect, well, what are some areas where there's no one clear kind of entity that's playing in that space, but where a funder might be able to meaningfully contribute to supercharge change in particular directions that would make for a more vital community. So these are the 5 that we've landed on. I would describe them as kind of trailheads. So we're at the beginning stages of going down some of these trails. We may find this is not at all the path that we need to be on and come back and redefine over the course of the years. But these 5 are creative placemaking, by which we mean using creative means, using the arts, to really imbue the spaces that we inhabit with more of a sense of place. Sometimes that's done through connecting with the history of that place. I see the Gerards here, and I think of the former police station and how we've thought to the different iterations of that over the course of the years. The back shop, yes. We have many terms of endearment for that site that I've been hearing about. So sometimes it's through creatively connecting with the history of that place. Other times it's through arts activations. We think that a vibrant community has more creative placemaking. Second is civic engagement, preaching to the choir. I feel like I don't need to say anything about that to this group. But we know that a vital community is not going to actually go unless you have engaged citizens who feel a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership, responsibility, who are paying attention, who have the tools to be able to pay attention to what's going on. So that's the second area. Fostering local is the third. And by this I mean both local, you think of like, I go to the farmer's market to get local produce, for instance. So we mean it in that kind of way, what's being produced here, but also in the consumption side of things. So the values that we have around supporting local business, around keeping our local economy circulating here in our area. Future readiness is the fourth. I know many of you, I have known many of you before I had this job, so you all will know that I have sort of a bias in life, which is, I think foresight is incredibly important, and we could build all the amazing, cool buildings in downtown that you can imagine, but if we aren't looking around the corner to try to see what's coming, what the future has in store for us, it could all end up being for naught. So think, economic changes. Here I think particularly of, in the workforce development sense, I think of automation and machine learning and artificial intelligence. Those things that are starting to really impact jobs. That'd be an example where we would need to look around the corner, anticipate that that's coming, and think about how we can have a vibrant, vital community regardless. Fifth one is active lifestyles. And I know many of you track our health statistics in our area, so I know that we don't rank the highest. We have this amazing set of assets, a world-class trail system, at the Sacramento River and much more. It doesn't always translate into health outcomes, but we do have a lot of the raw assets. So if you lead with your strengths, this is one of the areas that we think we could lead with when it comes to downtown revitalization. And if you have any, I'm going to pause now because I want to see if you have any questions or things to add. With the active lifestyles, I'll just mention some of you have probably been tracking some of the bike loops and have been involved in parks and trails and open spaces. Looking at you, Linda. So you know that there is a really great new opportunity to see additional cycle paths in downtown that would make for a more bikeable and walkable community. So that's one of the areas that we have to look forward to. Any kind of this is the initial territory landscape. Any comments or questions, observations? I'm looking to you. Is this a chin of I have a thought? Okay. We're good? Okay. I know you're not to be a shy group, so Susan, you can just, Okay, so here's the I kind of breezed through this picture. I wanted to give this just as an example of creative placemaking. Some of you may have stumbled upon this. This was a project of Catalyst Reading Young Professionals. They had seen in some other cities where there are pianos that are just sort of dropped in different locations. They provide, sometimes it's referred to as random acts of art. And so they took a piano that was just a used piano for $150 that they found on Craigslist, and we gave them a grant just for the purchase of that piano. They painted it, totally exceeded any expectations by giving a nod to the history of the window panes that have been there that used to hold up the roof of the mall. So it's a pretty incredible thing to be able to stumble upon. One of the people I admire in the community vitality space, her name is Carol Coletta. She used to be at CEOs for Cities. She's now at the Kresge Foundation, formerly at the Knight Foundation. And her definition of a vital community is that it's a place where people can stumble on the fun. And she's done decades of experience, but that's her distillation of it. And I feel like, there are people who understandably have given up on downtown Reading. And I asked myself the question, what's that magic ratio? How many times do they need to stumble on the fun, on something surprising, something new that exceeded their expectations before they can start to believe that something different is possible? And I don't know what the ratio is. I think it's pretty high. I think it's something like 35 to 1 or something like that, positive to negative. So we've got our work cut out for us. Okay, the quick tour of these projects. So I'm going to start right here. So just situating here at the corner of Tehama and California Street. This is the northern couple of blocks of what is the current California Street parking structure in downtown Reading. Any of you in the room who have been tracking infrastructure, because that's fun, but I know you do, you probably are aware that there is a useful life on the current parking structure, just like any piece of infrastructure, and we're coming to the end of it. And so, as we look at downtown, there's something that needs to be done around this parking structure, either major maintenance or some other effort. So we're trying to address one possibility to do a mixed-use development on that site. So a little bit more about that. we have applied to the state. So this is kind of funny because I joined the McConnell Foundation, which gives out grants, but really have spent the last year applying for grants, it turns out. So at the state, the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant and the Infill Infrastructure Grant. These fall under the state of California's priorities around around greenhouse gas reduction. And so they're cap and trade dollars that become available to communities. Competitive processes, you're well aware, I'm sure, that the K2 Dickers project in downtown Redding came from the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Round 2. We have applied together with K2 and the City of Redding for Round 3. So if you can all keep your fingers and toes crossed, this would be up to $24 million together for these two grants of our, you could think of it as our tax dollars that we send to the state and being able to bring some more of those back here if we're successful. So we've gotten some of our preliminary scoring back, and there is reason for cautious optimism. We won't find out the official results until June 28th when the Strategic Growth Council ratifies whatever the staff recommendation turns out to be. But we're feeling like we're in a competitive process and we're staying competitive in it. So feeling good about that. And I'll describe a little bit more about those grants. The Infill Infrastructure Grant is for a multi-story parking structure. So I've learned to build one space in a parking structure. I love it that at a league meeting people know about this, right? You're just nodding, the parking. So it costs around $25,000 to $40,000, the estimates range, to build one parking space in a parking structure. Think about what the McConnell Foundation could do with that money as an alternative to building parking spaces. So we're very keen on trying to see if we can get money from the state to build that. And this Infill Infrastructure Grant is a contingent grant. You can only get it if you're also pursuing one of these housing-related projects. So it really is designed, these are en suite with each other to try to create transit-efficient housing, so housing that's located close to transit, housing that's affordable. I know some of you have been probably tracking the bevy of bills that have been going through the legislative process and through the May revise in Sacramento around affordable housing. And it's obviously at crisis levels, and we think it's important to address it. So you can get the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant and not get the Infill Infrastructure Grant. We're crossing our fingers. So far it seems like we're competitive for both. You can't get the Infill Infrastructure Grant on its own because they don't want to support more parking for its own sake. Alice.
Well, who's applying for the grants exactly? Is it McConnell Foundation or Catalyst or?
Both of these grants is the City of Redding, K2, and the McConnell Foundation are the three co-applicants. Yep. And it's been important to learn from, K2 has now been through, they're further along in this process, so we've been able to benefit from some of the lessons learned from that. Okay, so you can see where this is. Yep, Patty.
On these grants, is there an advantage to having the municipality being one of the entities? I mean, do the grant givers like the buy-in of the different groups?
Yeah, they look for multi-stakeholder engagement just in general. I believe that the municipality being an applicant is a threshold requirement for it. They do also allow for tribal entities to be applicants. But in many cases, it's the city itself that's the applicant. And in terms of collaboration, we were really lucky. We had multiple local organizations who, signed letters of support in the process. Shasta College, who would be the neighbor to this potential project. Viva Downtown, just a slew of organizations that we've been really thankful for because they do look for, is this community on the same page? Are they ready for a project of this magnitude? So here's an image, just a rendering of what this could look like. And I should say Cushman out of Sacramento, or our architects, Ryan Russell from right here in Redding, did this rendering, so hats off to them. What you're looking at here, just to kind of situate yourself, so Shasta College, you guys can see this better. Shasta College is this narrow little strip on this side, the downtown campus. So you've got Tehama Street here, California Street kind of goes down this way, so you're actually looking down the alley. So if you're heading like to the post office or to the atrium, the back way. That's the alley that you're looking down. It's widened. We proposed widening it by 13, 14 feet, so giving more of the right-of-way back to the city along this frontage for the purpose of being able to make it more bikeable, walkable, just a point of interest. Right now, you kind of like stumble down the alley if you go there right now. Murals on the wall. You'll hear more from Debra about the Reading Cultural District and more. There's an opportunity anytime that there's a project in downtown to really create some points of interest and intrigue so that you would actually want to travel here, want to inhabit this space. Ground floor retail, restaurants, mixed use, 3 stories of housing up above. And this is affordable, it's an affordable housing development, obviously, based on the grant, the name of the grant. It's 79 units, 75% of which are affordable units, which is defined as between 30 and 60% of area median income. 25% of the units are market rate. So we're looking at long-term. Obviously, downtown needs to have a mix of affordable and market rate housing. We ultimately need people with a lot of disposable income to be able to, go down to the restaurants and enjoy the local shops. At the moment, there's not enough of a proven market for market rate housing here, so we need to kind of find creative ways to work our way towards that. So next image, this is from the southern end. So now where Butte Street is being kind of reintroduced on the K2 Dickers project, you're kind of looking at that frontage. So you're looking north up the alleyway here. And here we're looking at developing along the back kind of steps. One of the things we're learning about activating green spaces, like the one you see here, is that it requires people to care for it, to spend time in it. So along the back, there are actually several back stoops where we would have tenants on the ground floor who would come home to downtown at night, turn their porch light on, and hopefully have a sense of ownership about what happens right outside of their door. So if we're successful with the infill infrastructure grant, the way we've proposed it is we'd have the housing, a bit of a green space, open space, and then just south of that, so you're getting into kind of that middle block of the current parking structure, that's where we would have the multi-story infill infrastructure grant parking structure. Okay, are we good? Can I keep going? Yep.
Question. Catherine and I were just talking. I wouldn't mind living downtown, but there's no place to buy groceries. Oh, I wouldn't mind living downtown, but there's no place to buy groceries. Go street liquor.
So any of you who know John Mancasola, you probably know that his family knows a bit about the grocery business. So this is a conversation to be had, but we definitely, we're looking at things like a long-term farmer's market, grocery store for staples, all of these things, but you have to get to where the market studies will actually point to, somebody who's willing to then come into a downtown, have a small footprint presence. So agree, and it's the question of, we can't quite get there from here. So what are the steps that need to happen in order to get there? Oh, yes, Martha.
Parking structure. I've been parking in the old parking structure. I have a question about the new parking structure. I've been parking in the old parking structure for like 12 years, almost every day, and it's always full, pretty much even during the week. So what would be the size, how many spaces would be losing spaces or gaining spaces or staying equal on the new parking structure?
Okay, let's go to the addendum of this presentation. Things are actually already changing some in downtown. So parking utilization, the most recent study was in May of 2017 that the city of Reading did, where they do a count. They actually go send people into all the different public parking spaces, and they say, well, which ones are public lots, publicly accessible, metered, unmetered, all of that. So from this study, you can see, validating exactly what you were saying, red is higher utilization, so it's like 80% and plus. When they measured this was during weekday peak time, which they define as, I think it's between 11 and 1. So basically over the lunch hour, when there are both employees who are still working at their jobs and also people coming into downtown to eat. And in this one, I just want to show you in terms of the utilization. So in the downtown core, it's at 65% utilization overall. the parking supply. So there's a question of, there's the overall supply. Do we have enough parking in the downtown area? Is it being used? And then there's the question of distribution. Where is it? Is it convenient? Do I feel safe walking to and from? Is it well lit? All of those types of questions. So this was both surprising in a good and bad way when I first learned this statistic, because in a thriving downtown, you really want closer to like 90% utilization of your parking. So we've got a ways to go from that perspective, but it is important for people who are currently parking in the parking structure to have a pathway that they feel like is safe and comfortable. So a couple of the things that we're looking at to help offset this, and I should just say there are others in the room who can speak better than I can about the City of Reading's parking strategy. This is a study that they're undertaking right now. It's kind of an addendum to the downtown specific plan update that just passed. And so they're doing a much more comprehensive look. This is kind of what can the McConnell Foundation do as a private developer. So one of the things that we're looking at is some configurations of the former police station, which I'll talk about in a minute, but in that area to be able to offer transitional parking. And so we're looking at which spaces we could offer for up to 10 years that are basically across the street from the northern block of that parking structure. And also you may have noticed a kitty corner from the northern end of the parking structure. There is the RABA parking area. There's the bell rooms, there's the RABA parking area. There's actually a lot that's fenced off right now, so that has 0% utilization right now. And so there are some additional spaces potentially to be gained there as well. What we have proposed, to your exact question, what we've proposed for the infill infrastructure grant is in terms of the multi-stories. First floor parking spaces 33, second floor parking spaces 31. And here I'm just gonna say, whoops, this 15,000 square foot potential is, we would love to ultimately see something like a grocery store there if it could get to that point. It's one of the conversations we've had. And then upstairs, 78 on the third and fourth floors. So that's our current kind of configuration. And the City of Reading has been, in the parking study, has been looking at both ways to restripe some of the existing parking. So you may have noticed, I think it's on Yuba Street, that they've been doing some switching from parallel parking to diagonal parking to try to fit in some more spaces. So there's a lot of levers, I think, that are still to be pulled in that process. Oops, let me go back now. So now, the bright yellow just north, this is the former police station. And so we're on Tehama Street in California. Some of you know it and love it and probably have many memories that you have made, hopefully not by going to visit the police, but maybe as a city council member or attending public meetings there or going to the Gerard business that was there or the livery that was, no. So what we're looking at there is on the northern end where there's the brick structure. We think we're gonna have to demolish that structure. And so we've had many passes at trying to understand the structural engineering of it, snow load. I won't bore you with the details, but we think we're gonna have to demolish that. We recently received confirmation that they think they can salvage up to like 100 of the bricks for sentimental value. It's gonna take a lot of care because the cement content in the mortar is greater than the density of the bricks. So that's why when people say like, can't you just save all the bricks from the former police station? They're gonna crumble. That's the situation. So that we have looked into using that whole northern end where the brick structure is and converting that into transitional parking for up to 10 years. So that's one piece. On the southern end with the, what'd you call it, Lou? The outback?
The most southerly one is called the back shop. It was the front end alignment department.
The back shop, yes. We'll have to do some sort of play on that. That would be fun. So on the southern end where there are the warehouses, we're looking at doing some temporary activations. And by activation, I mean, a way of programming the space to enliven it, to give people a reason to go there and inhabit that space. And so just to share a couple of images, so you could take this bay. I think this is the very one that you were just talking about, Lou, the southernmost one. This was used most recently for evidence storage, I have been told. So imagine that we could take this space, make some minor modifications to it, and really use it as a space to prototype or to test out different ideas that people are putting forward for downtown Reading. So if people think, oh, there should be a farmer's market in downtown Reading, well, maybe this is an opportunity to see, well, how does that jive with everything that's already going on with existing farmers markets? Who would show up for this one? What would they be interested in? There's the idea of something like a bike share or a bike rental. So, well, what's the minimum viable product of a bike share? Could that be tested here, and we could see who shows up and how that plays out? I'll just mention, because this group would probably appreciate it, we are also looking at some things as minor but important as signage. So, many people who may have kind of given up on downtown, in a way, it's hard to even remember, oh, right around the corner, I could go see, oops.
I just had a quick question about the overall scheme, which is, this looks perfect if there were a large number of 20 and 30-something young professionals who were migrating into Reading. So, because my sons live in this kind of a place back east, where in fact they took completely horrible industrial areas and they redid the whole thing, and now it's just full of young professionals, but there are young professionals there, which is not what Reading is seeing in terms of influx of young professionals. So have you done focus groups with the existing population to see, in fact, what people feel about these various plans?
So a couple questions there. One is, have we done focus groups? So we've done a market study specific to the affordable housing question. So this was about, well, who would be able to afford to live in these units? Who wants to live downtown anyway? It's a car-light lifestyle. Right. So we have done some of that market analysis, and we feel comfortable that there's the type of market that could support both the current K2 Dickers project and also that one in terms of people who would live there. Part of that is because there's such a pent-up demand for affordable housing that it's like the list is sky high. In terms of some of the other offerings, it's a really complex thing, right? Because it's not like strictly if you build it, they will come. We have a brain drain challenge in our community. Some call it brain drain. And I was giving a presentation the other day, and someone made a comment. Well, I only see young people in these photos. Where are all of the, everyone else? And but I can't tell you how many times I hear from people that I just wish my son or daughter would move back, but they feel like there's nothing for them here. Now, the jobs thing has to come along with it, right?
Yes.
And so that's part of, as we look at trends in the future of work, we're starting to see an increase in freelancing, an increase in online work where people can work from anywhere. The social safety net is starting to come along to where it's viable to actually do that and still have benefits, which has been a missing piece for a while that I think has kept it from accelerating as much as it could. So all of those things are things that we're tracking, and they have to, it has to go together. So, yep.
So I have a question, because you have, with all this downtown area, one of the greatest resources you've got is the train, only it only comes at 3 a.m. So it's like, is there any possibility of working with that system?
Over my pay grade. Yeah, Diane, do you want to say something?
I don't know whether to or not, but there is a group in town who is very interested in using the Cascade Theater on Sunday mornings. And that will bring a lot of people down to the south end of town. And I don't know about anything else, but that is going to occur in August.
So as you're to this question around how do you get more of the young people? The train transit question is an age-old one, and I know, so far I've been learning about the work of groups like Shasta Regional Transportation Agency, who are really taking a holistic view, multimodal transit in our area. And, I can't help but think that that these kinds of affordable housing developments, which are transit efficient housing by design, that's going to get more people, on an order of magnitude of maybe 400 between these two projects, living close to that transit. Whether that maps onto the demand enough that it increases the level of service is a different thing. Noella.
I recently watched you with your Facebook Live streaming, and you talked a lot about pop-ups.
Yep.
Have you talked about pop-ups in relation to what you're talking to us about today?
The pop-ups would actually be, so pop-up meaning this is something that is temporary by design. Instead of being a retail store that's there for, 10 years, it's something that maybe appears on 3 weekends in a row, and then that's lived through its life, and there's an interplay between the way of purchasing something face-to-face and then the online community that begins to continue that purchasing pattern. So pop-ups are a form of experiential retail, and it's an opportunity to go and actually soak up an experience. You may purchase something while you're there at a pop-up retail event, for instance, but the value, if you track kind of where the value is in the experience of being in that place with those people. So it's a shift that's
attract younger people too.
Well, that's a hypothesis. Yeah, it's a hypothesis we're testing. So I should have mentioned at the former police station, what we're looking at in most of that activation is actually as a pop-up activation. So in downtown best practices, as I'm learning, they say that if you can only kind of pop up something for 1 day a week, make it Saturday, day and night. If you can, if you have capacity to do a couple days, maybe it's Friday night, Saturday, day and night, and you kind of back your way into having a longer weekend. So this is going to be the first project, to my knowledge, that's under the pop-up provisions of the downtown specific plan update, which just passed. So we will be learning our way together with the city planning and building departments about how exactly this goes. But it is pop-up by design. The third project, if I may. So we've talked the housing project and the infill infrastructure grant. We've talked the former police station, the former bell rooms. And here I need to give a hat tip to anyone in this room, the Arts Council, the Shasta Historical Society, This Place Matters, and others who saw that the Reading Area Bus Authority had slotted the historic bell rooms building for demolition and said, you know what, we don't have to tear down all of our buildings that are 100 years old. So we were curious about this when we saw that Reading Area Bus Authority issued an RFP. Could someone do something with this? If we're not going to demolish it, what could be done? And so what we've proposed preliminarily for that is a two-part kind of complex, I guess you could say, quite small actually in terms of the overall block. Can everybody picture that building? Do you know it's a white painted brick structure at the corner of Shasta in California. So on that structure, what we're looking at is doing a kind of bike-friendly cafe or restaurant, a gated area, so that if someone's coming off the newly funded and soon-to-be-built Diesel Horse to Downtown bicycle loop, they could wheel in, have a place to park their bike where they have line of sight to it while they grab a cup of coffee or whatever. That's one part. And then the other part in that gated area is something like a bike depot. And this is a concept that Ann Thomas from Shasta Living Streets has been developing for a while, an opportunity to go have a jumping off point for bike tours, bike rentals, to be able to have some educational, just kind of classroom space to be able to bring up the next generation of cyclists. The effect we're looking for is to have an adaptive reuse project early on in this cycle of redevelopment, with the hopes that if additional outside investors come to Reading in this next cycle of investment, that they will see that we can do adaptive reuse here and that they should consider it instead of just leveling any historic building they come across. And the other hope is to have an intimate space that feels full of people. So it's a rather small space, but we think it could serve as kind of a welcome sign as cyclists who are participating in cycling tourism, for instance, come off of that trail and into downtown. Oh, Teresa, amazing. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to catch us up to where I just was. These are all of the former police station. So the bell rooms, here's a couple of images. You can see how small of a portion of the actual block it is from this aerial. This is the historic, this is the actual adaptive reuse structure. So white paint stripped off, pitch of the roof restored, a facade. Right now there's that cinder block stuff that's not at all historic that's at the end of it. So putting a glass facade so you can see in, people can see out. And then on the left, the opportunity to have the bike depot. Today was the day actually that the City of Reading submitted a grant application. We're a contributing match to it, to the Urban and Community Forestry grant at the state, up to 175 new street trees, most of which would be slotted for downtown Reading, and some years of maintenance that's also baked into that process. Travis Meny from the City of Reading put in the effort to get that application across the finish line, and we are hopeful that it will be successful. Here's another view just looking across. So this is California Street, and then next one, if you're looking across Shasta Street, so you're looking kind of south at this point. And these are all conceptual. These are by Trilogy Architecture and the team there. And lastly, you'll notice that I think it's important that we design for nightlife, that we're always asking ourselves, well, what would happen here at night? And how would it be lit so that you'd want to, feel like you want to be there? If we don't design nightlife intentionally, we will not have nightlife. So we got to do that from the very start. I'm going to close here and say on the Bell Rooms building, actually I'll do a quick UP update. On the Bell Rooms building, some street artist, I guess, had seen the boarded up windows, which were kind of depressing, like boarded up several times, and had scrawled reinvent on the side of it, which felt so striking for this moment that we're actually in. The coda to this story is that the very efficient City of Reading graffiti abatement team has made its way to this. And so if you look now, it is not visible any longer. So now we have to make good on this promise, I suppose. Union Pacific, just a quick update on that one, because I know there are people who have just poured into that process over the years. Most recently, we know that there was a team 2 weeks ago, Union Pacific team of executives who met. We think we have the right people at the table at this point, although it's all cautious optimism from here. And they've said that they would be interested in finalizing a property swap of the Union Pacific rail yard area. So some of their operations that is currently in downtown would move to Schnitzer Steel. Some of the switching would actually stay where it is. But Schnitzer Steel, which is a site that the McConnell Foundation acquired south of town. And that would enable the blighted part, where you just look at it and you think, what is happening there for decades? That would be an opportunity for redevelopment as well. So stay tuned. We shall see about that one. Alice, did you have one? No? Okay. Martha.
You've talked a lot about entertainment and different things that you could do downtown and about housing, but have you considered at all bringing in some, I know my son is involved in a startup company here. He's CTO of Limelight, and they recently were looking
That's your son!
Yes.
Oh.
And he has employees in San Francisco.
Laird.
$3,000 a month for a studio apartment, right? That would love to come out here. So have you thought about giving some incentive to these new startup companies, the technology companies? His employees are all people in their 30s or 20s, to have their business come downtown. Because here we're talking about bringing in young people, right? Mm-hmm. But for entertainment alone, how about having some of these businesses have an incentive to set up their offices there? So that's my question.
So the City of Reading has set up some incentives that relate to trying to attract developers in downtown. And of course, they're always trying to look for how to work with different businesses. From the McConnell Foundation's perspective, we're tracking what groups like Shasta Economic Development Corporation are doing, the Startup Reading community. Some of you may have noticed that is it Pine Street, I believe, or is it East Street? Right across from where it used to be the Greyhound bus station, across from Tide House, there's a building that some young entrepreneurs are reinvesting in to try to make it into something like a startup center. So we're watching that scene closely. And then we're also tracking what groups like the Superior California Economic Development are doing to try to look for businesses that are in need of a loan that are at a kind of startup scale. So we're tracking some of that. So at this stage, we're looking and watching where that cycle is headed to try to understand it better.
But not encouraging to come downtown.
We don't have programs yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I've exceeded my time. I want to thank you all very much for the opportunity. Hand that to you. Thank you. Good luck if I don't see you. Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
So my name's Debra Lucero, and I am the Executive Director of the Shasta County Arts Council. And I have been in Reading for the past 7 years. And I just want to say that I'm really excited because when I came to downtown Reading, you could literally shoot a cannon down the street and you wouldn't hit a soul. And now, 7 years later, there are people walking on the streets, people eating in the restaurants, there are businesses relocating downtown. We have momentum. There's stuff happening, and I'm excited by it. I gotta find that little clicker she had here. Okay, so our part of this story started 2 years ago, really about 2.5 years ago, when I heard through the California Arts Council that there were going to be cultural districts. These were started, these are on your table, legislatively. And the reason why the legislature took this up is because they knew that arts and economic opportunity went hand in hand, and several states had actually utilized this concept to rebuild their states. One of them being Louisiana, which had just gone through Katrina. They actually have 78 cultural districts in their state. There are 14 states now that have legislatively created cultural districts. Reading is so fortunate to be in on the ground floor of this, and it was very competitive. We really had no idea where it was going to lead. And I can tell you right now, it has led to some incredible momentum in downtown. And I just finished an article for, it's a blog called Medium, and it's actually going to be on the California Arts Council website and also on their blog, and it's all about Reading. And it's pretty cool. So many people are amazed by the bridge. I don't know if you got to see the dancers dancing off the bridge. Did anybody get to see that? Who got to see that? I mean, that's once in a lifetime. But in just 1 year, everything that Rachel just talked about, K2 was already moving forward. They were, they're the pioneers in this. Developers that take a chance and say, hey, I think we can do this, and want to try to create affordable housing in a very tight housing market and put together a fragile funding system. That's pretty incredible for all of us. And we need that. We need housing in California. And this, of course, you saw at a little bit later stage. But what's amazing about K2 in this first project is that it's a $38 million project, and they got a $20 million grant. All right, so the bridge funding on that was not as great as it could have been. This is the project that Rachel was talking about in downtown. Don't you think that's going to transform the center of downtown? This is the bell rooms, and this is what it looks like right now. And you saw what it's going to look like. This is what it looked like years and years ago. Okay, and it was called the bell rooms, and it was a residence continuously since 1908. The old City Hall was built in 1907, so this was built just 1 year later. And it's only just about a block apart. And that's what it's going to look like. Maybe it'll be here for another 100 years, who knows? So the bicycle idea here is very important, and the bell rooms will play an important role in that. And going back to that first picture, let me just quickly, I don't know if I can do this quickly. Maybe this isn't a good idea. No, I don't think I'm going to do that. So what's happening now is that we're drawing more businesses downtown. The Reading Fashion Alliance, have you heard about that? That has moved downtown. Have you had a chance to visit downtown? They're offering classes, they're offering fashion shows. Tech companies are emerging. The Reading Chamber of Commerce has moved back downtown. And after years and years that saw the departure of our civic functions, which are very important to a downtown, we are starting to see some revitalization in that area. Our police department, the library, and City Hall are not theoretically located in the downtown. So the police station, as you've seen, they're right now calling it the Green Door Project, which is a nod to the green doors, but I kind of like the back shop idea too, so who knows what's going to happen. And then something that has happened as a result of our cultural district is that we started out with 3 legal partners. We had to have 3 partners, an arts organization, a business organization, and the actual jurisdiction, a city, which is the city of Reading. We actually had 6 partners. We added the Shasta Historical Society, Turtle Bay, and I can never name all 6 for some reason, but anyway, anybody remember?
Rodeo.
No. Anyway, I'll remember in a minute. But the deal is this, that as a result of all this, we had more and more people say, we want to be partners with you. So what's happened now is we have Visit Reading, and we have Cascade Theater, and we have the Civic Reading Auditorium, then we have Reading Chamber of Commerce and the Reading Rodeo, and people are starting to come on board because they want to be a part of it. So one of the things that this map displays, this is a map of all the indigenous people who lived in Reading before any of us got here. Okay, and right here in the center, right here, that is downtown Reading. It was a huge indigenous area. And so we have some people on our committee who said it would be so nice if in this cultural district we could actually recognize the people that came before us. And instead of starting our history in 1872, maybe we could start it a little earlier than that. So guess what? This is now part of the downtown specific plan. This map, which I really applaud the city council for. So cultural awareness is something that's happening. And now that the history reads, 9 bands of the Northern Wintu people have resided within the area of the Northern River Valley and surrounding mountains from the time immemorial, living with the abundant landscape. It does go on to tell some of the ugly truth, which I think we all need to hear. And then it goes into 1872 and what happened. But this cultural district is making amends with the Wintu Indians, and we are actually on the agenda, I believe, for the second meeting at the Reading City Council, where one of the local Wintu Indian band members will present to the board, to the council, this book, which has a really cool map in it and talks about the history of the Wintus. So there are things happening that we didn't even really expect, but they're happening. And I think it's healthy. So the first thing that we did when we got designated is that we invited everybody, well, 5 districts, 5 of the cultural districts, which included Eureka, Grass Valley, Nevada City, downtown San Rafael, Truckee, and the Reading Cultural District to come to a summit and say, how do we get here? Where do we want to go? How do we make this successful? And we all learned from each other. Oh, I love that ring. That's beautiful. So this is what we did. We came together, and these are some of the lessons. People said we need to unify. We need to have people support what they help. People will support what they help build. We need to provide inexpensive housing for artists. I had the idea of creating an art bus and going to San Francisco and San Diego and Oakland, all these places, and load them up on the bus and say, come on up to Reading. Come on, follow the bus. Come up here and help us with our downtown, because they're getting priced out of those cities. We need to provide free youth programs, inclusion of all cultures, encourage weekend-only galleries, visiting artists, culinary experiments, boutique shops, living history tours, art classes, gospel choirs, outdoor movies, makers fair. You can see, and everybody wanted to see public art everywhere. So I don't know if you know, but in our cultural district, we have about 74 pieces of public art. That's stretching it a bit, but you probably know this piece. Some of the pieces are more like wayfinding signage that we are including in public art. But Alice Prominsky did a wonderful inventory of all of the art, and now we know where the art is and where we would like to place new art. So we have done that as part of the district, so that the city now can develop a plan with our assistance. As Rachel mentioned, we got a $242,000 grant, and we have been using that. We gave $50,000 away to 19 mini grant applicants. We had 33 applicants, and we have literally funded everything from an LGBTQ art festival to a fashion week, a children's theater production, a night of environmental creativity, which is coming up June 1st, this Friday. If you really want to go to something special, I would encourage you to come to this. We have children's summer art classes. We are starting a downtown art lunch, which is going to be, I think, once a month at Old City Hall. We are going to have Shakespeare in the Park, 12th night, and that's going to be at the Riverfront Amphitheater. And these are all from the mini grants. So we're reactivating space, reclaiming space, and this is going to be down at the Riverfront Park. So please come. The dates on that are June 8th and 9th at 7:30 in the evening. It's $5 to get in. Children 12 and under are free. And June 10th at 2 p.m., and it's at the Riverfront Amphitheater. It's going to be quite amazing. So please don't miss this. Actually, I think this one is free. Yeah, this one is free. And then there's also going to be a Sundial Music Festival. And that is going to happen on summer solstice. And we're going to have jazz, country, and blues. These are all world-class acts on the river. And that's the one that costs $5 and 12 and under are free. So come down because we need to support these things, and it's going to be lovely. Bring a picnic lunch, whatever. We will have food trucks there and beer and wine and all that good stuff. So part of this idea is to activate space that we haven't been going to. Riverfront Park is a gem. It's an incredibly beautiful place. Right on the river, the city's done a great job clearing out the back part of it. If you haven't been down there, you need to come down. And one of the unexpected outcomes is all these 19 grantees are learning how to put on events, how to negotiate city contracts, city permits. This is one of these kind of fun things that we did in what we call Dam Art Alley, and that's right by Dam Burger. And we just painted a bunch, Jefferson Thomas painted some hats, and people just came and got their pictures. You can go down, if they're still there, I don't know when they were going to repaint the building, it was soon. Go down and get your picture taken before they disappear in your favorite hat. Mine happens to be the Carmen Miranda hat. So this is what's making us famous. This is what's giving us international attention. That and the river, and all that the river implies. And all we're trying to do is make some world-class fun out of it, and actually art and economic development out of it, which we are doing. So these were actually from the state. Rachel's to the left, and these are 2 people from the state. I think there were 2 or 3 that came to go on our walk with us. And as I said, they must have been impressed. But the tour that we took them on now, other people want to go on. And now we're trying to figure out how to do that. How do we take all the people that want to go on tour? Because we don't have the bicycle loop finished yet. We still need to take a bicycle or a golf cart and a van to some of these places, but we're getting there. Our designation is for 5 years, and we're in a 2-year model program. So next June 19th, June of 2019, that will be our basically our model program time. We are the guinea pigs for the state of California, and we have to write a report and talk about what we've learned. But we've learned a lot, and I believe it's acting as a catalyst to reinvent downtown. I truly believe that. And arts and culture are that powerful, and story is that powerful. So believe in Reading, because we are building a world-class city, and it is going to happen. So thank you all for your attention, and I am going to end here tonight and ask for questions if anybody has questions. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that our community owes Debra incredible accolades for all of her hard work. We went through 2 or 3 executive directors for Shasta County Arts Council before she came on board, and she has just skyrocketed that organization.
Thank you.
And I'm really hoping that you'll get elected, but I'm really hoping you won't. because I don't want to lose you up here.
Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Well, I am contracted, and I do keep my word on contracts, through June of 2019. So I wouldn't take office if I am elected until January 1st. I am running for supervisor down in Butte County, and I guess I love the North State, and what I see missing in the North State is collaboration. So I'm just going to make a pitch for this right now, because this is what's made me personally successful, but also every organization that I've ever worked with, and that's collaboration. And what happens in the North State is that we are so small in our cities and our counties that one city is just not big enough, and one county is not big enough. So I'm truly hoping that Reading and Chico can actually collaborate on some big projects. I would like to see us partner on homelessness. We are 2 cities in the North State that are battling this. And I wish Rachel were still here, but I'm actually looking at Iowa, because imagine this, Iowa has 99 counties. We have 58, and it's much smaller than we are. So imagine the bureaucracy. But they are actually creating what they call crisis intake centers to help with the homeless issue. And every 90 minutes, they are throughout their state. And in between those areas are detox centers, mental health facilities, not those that just keep them for 2 weeks, get them on meds, and then kick them back out into the streets, but they actually help them for a year. Anyway, we can get this type of thing, but not one city at a time, not one county at a time. So I'm hoping that when Missy gets elected, then we can work together as counties and really make something like this happen, counties and cities. We need to work together, and I love this North State. I got to quickly say, my mom was from Ryweka, my dad was from Weed, my grandfather had specialized auto body at Dunsmuir for years and years. Grew up every summer on Shasta Lake, born in Chico, lived in Corning, and my parents both taught in Red Bluff. Wow. So there you go.
Thank you, Debra. Well, let's give them most they can. Rachel and Ron, and Debra here.
Thank you. Thank you.